Okay, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the CBM Effect. Back with another episode this week, and I have a very special guest for me this time. It's Mr. Neil Rennie. We have coached with the same coach for a few years now, so we've been able to connect on Instagram. He's just competed last week prior, and we chat back and forth. I think Neil's really great with his coaching, his results, his mentality around the whole thing. So I wanted to get him on and basically take a deep dive into his mindset, his approach, and we're going to have a bit of a back and forth, and hopefully there's something that you guys can take away for your own listening. So I'll stop chatting. Neil, if you want to give me a bit of an introduction to yourself and your background, all the way from what got you into this and everything, we'll go from there.
Well, obviously, it's first, thank you for having us on. And obviously, I'm very Irish and you're very Scottish. So the two of us together, let me get the subtitles on this.
I will need them.
Yeah, I've been coaching now for just about around 11 years. So I went to uni for it. It was one of the classic stories where you were overweight, when you were younger, got a wee bit bullied, decided I need to go to the gym, and then just generally fell in love for it from then. And I think like my passion and interest has changed over the years. It's not like, oh, prove people wrong. It's kind of like just love the thing. Yeah. So yeah, I started coaching over in Northern Ireland. What would have been 11 years ago. Moved to Newcastle is really where I kind of got my grasp properly in education with training, and lived there for 7 years, mostly personal training. COVID hit, went more towards the online side of things. That was when I started doing bodybuilding for the first time, which is 3 or 4 years ago now, and started wanting to actually take the physique development side to the more extreme. And then my client base kind of went more towards that kind of direction too now. And then as of a year ago this month, moved back to Northern Ireland because it was basically just all online. I missed home, to be honest, as well. It really settled us. So from that point, like it's basically all online coaching now that I do. And I've just competed, as I say, in my second year of bodybuilding.
Yeah. So obviously you competed, is it what, third season you've done now?
Third season I competed, the first show out of lockdown in the tent at Two Bros. Yeah.
I remember that tent.
Freezing. You couldn't do it. It's still freezing down there every time you go down there. Yeah. So I was men's physique then, was around about 160 pounds when I stepped on stage. And then the plan was to do 2-year off season, but started dieting for my wedding. Thought, oh, geez, I put a lot of muscle on. So went into like first timers bodybuilding. I went on stage at 180 pounds. And then this year I stepped on stage at 202 pounds. So about 40 pounds of muscle gained in that sort of 3-year span.
That is absolute madness. I think even to those who are in this realm properly, that is insane. How do you feel?
It's something I'm very proud of, but
yeah, you should be.
Extremely like hard at points. And to be honest, like I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I nearly feel that gaining phase for people, with clients as well, is nearly harder than prep because that same focus isn't always there. Or you're not visually seeing yourself leaning shoulders, all that kind of stuff. It's
like that delayed gratification. It's like you're almost looking worse to be better at a later date. And it's like baggy clothes on, just focus on the gym and it'll pay off at a later date.
That's definitely the hard part of the mindset of it, more so as much as the physical aspect of it.
So you obviously started 3 years ago for your first competition, and I've heard you talk about your 5-year project before in bodybuilding. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So initially, it was
I like that.
I needed something, like, honestly, to be like, with my mental health was not good when lockdown happened. Like, I was actually prepping for a show. I've been prepping for 6 months. I was with the guy that it's just, his processes were so like scientific to the point it was stupid, you know? So the show got cancelled the week before, the week of. Yeah. So, and I was about to compete, and I just felt lost, mate, in life a little bit with it. You know, obviously being a PT, gyms were closed, didn't have any online income, had no income, and I needed something to like direct my focus. And at that point, I thought about like, right, I need a project. I need something that I can fully invest in for 5 years that brings me passion and joy, because I always wanted something that I could be aiming towards. So really, like, the plan was to move from men's physique to bodybuilding within that. That
always a plan.
Yeah. And leave it there. Because you don't know where your genetics are at. You don't know your potential. You don't really know, but I needed something, like, you need something to be aiming towards, working towards. So like this would be the last year of that. And that was the plan. But now I'm thinking, I love it too much now. I really, really do.
I think, well, I'm thinking in my head that my next prep will be my last one, but I'm already asking, how will I feel at the end of that? It's all good and well. You're in the off season, as you say, you're heavy. You're like, I don't like feeling like this, but then you get to the end and you're like, I could get a bit bigger. Yeah, I like this process too much.
And it's a thing that obviously we are sort of mindset, and sort of the mindset we try and put on clients as well, is that it's like looking for progress. That doesn't necessarily obviously mean just in your physique, but what I've seen for me is like bodybuilding has coincided with me becoming, not to be too cheesy and soft, but a better person. Like, I've grown a lot from that point, especially the last couple of years, because it's directed my focus my attention, beforehand when I was down, or maybe people would say depressed. This has given me something, and it's not something that I want to leave behind. And I've got the support of my partner now as well. So I think I've got another season in me.
Yeah, I'm sure Vaughn will be very happy to be hearing that.
Yeah, see, he's over the moon.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. It's like your environment around you can dictate how long you can do it for as well. And getting out of bed and having purpose and being able to work towards something on a daily, like I think I'd be lost without that as well. Like when you don't have like daily actions, weekly goals, monthly targets, like where would you go without it, sort of thing.
And that's even in your own like coaching, I'm sure too, because that's how I feel about it. It drives me in that side. Like it's because clients see me doing it. Like if I find it hard when I see a coach with no goals. Usually they don't have a lot of results with clients. Do you know what I mean?
You've not been there and done it. How can you take someone else to it?
No empathy, no inspiration. If I'm asking somebody to do something, at least they've been there, at least they've tried. It doesn't mean they've been necessarily overly successful at it at times, but I've learned lessons from it.
And I don't know about you, but every time I prep, I learn something new that I can carry over to new clients as well, like either how it feels or maybe a slightly different methodology, a slightly tweak to that. And I just think if you're not doing that and walking it, it's impossible to, you can't learn it in a textbook or in a seminar sort of thing.
What was your biggest lesson from your last prep? Like in terms of even like if we went like a physical one and a mental one, what would you say are your two biggest lessons?
Yeah. So the mental one for me, right? So I went on to Granite last year. It was like a year ago today, actually, funnily enough. And I'd obviously done 2 bros the year before. I'd done pretty well. And in my idea, I was going in to win, and it was like nothing less than that was acceptable. And I came third on the day, and it broke me. It absolutely broke me to the point that I felt as a failure. And looking back, the progress that I made from 2022 into 2023 was phenomenal. Best run of progress I've ever made, best I've ever looked by a mile. But I was letting someone else's opinion of where I place against other people dictate my success. So the biggest thing for me is like take a step back and look in the mirror and look at what you've actually achieved versus allowing someone else's opinion dictate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You were much bigger. You were better conditioned. Even the midsection that we both struggle with was better, from your end too. Like so, I think I agree with that fully.
I think as well. I don't know how hard you've had this, but there was one day on prep last year where there was a run of 3 days. I had film and move on, and I could barely talk in the whole thing. I was so fucked. I could barely talk. I could barely look up. And I remember on a Saturday night, I was walking my dog. I got a little spaniel, Theo, and he's pulling at me just a little bit. And I just nearly started crying, being like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, if you can push through that, like there's on the hardest days, the greatest return comes afterwards. Like being able to push through those hardest periods, there's always success around the corner. And I think being able to persevere through moments like that is really important.
That like that's very this for the spaniel because I have a wee jug.
Yeah.
And like the bits I've heard like in terms of like for me, this year's been very different than previous years. I create a mindset that's like just hardened, and I find myself nearly emotionally switch off to the fact like when the dog comes near me, I'm like, no, get off. I go self-checking a little bit with it. But like what my mantra's been with this prep is like when the past I like broke down, how do we cry? This time around it's been like, see when I've felt that hard times because I've obviously done it in the past. Like the year before was the hardest prep I've ever done. It's the leanest I've ever got. And it just shook me. Where this year when I felt like that, I've just decided I'm just gonna laugh and just do this like I know this is weird, this like hysterical kind of laugh to go like I'm inviting this, like I want this time. This is where I need to be with it, and having that attitude to it rather than victimizing yourself, going like fucking bring it. That's
you know something. I'm going to take that on board for my next one. I've got
switches that emotion. It switches that trigger. Like it's the same emotion, really. It's just on that little balancing point. So if you can take it from being like, could go on, fuck's sake, what am I doing? I find it help me anyway.
Yeah, well, I've got a client, Louise, who's she's competing in 2 weeks' time, and her whole mantra is, "I'm just so grateful that I'm able to do this. I'm so blessed. I'm so happy." And her positive outlook on things has meant that she's just felt so much better. Versus, I've got guys that don't have that same mentality, and they're fucked. So I think that like trying to have a positive outlook on it and put a positive spin on it, be like, I get to do this. Like it feels like I'm in a position where I actually can. It can make all the difference, and that's something I'm definitely going to try and implement because I've never done that before.
That's when is your next prep? When are you planning?
Next year, I'm hoping.
Next year.
I'll not lie, mate. I'm seeing everybody on prep right now, and I actually just yesterday I was looking at show dates later in the year, and I was like, I could do it. So when you start to get itchy feet, but I'm like, just lay the course of time. But I absolutely want to do Scottish season next year, 100%.
Yeah. hold out. I mean more to you doing that. You know, I think that's the thing as well. Like, because that was, if you don't mind, that was one of the questions that I had is like, when is the right time to compete?
Yeah.
Obviously, depends, but I think for yourself and having like some reason behind it, like an emotional attachment, and then like what you attach that prep to being. Like, I always like to come up with like a storyline for it. I'm not case here at the minute, but like having a
give it a title,
story.
yeah.
Like the last one was like, I wanted vindication.
Yeah.
I wanted vindication of like, it was more a place of anger, which maybe wasn't the best thing. It's like, I'll show them. Where now it's like I belonged. Do you know what I mean? And I was going to come into it with the confidence that I knew I developed over the last few years was a big one for me.
Showcase that, yeah. Well, you know what's interesting when you say that? Like, I was due to prep for this Scottish season coming, and I started it and everything, and I was getting deeper into it, and I was like, my head's just not in this. I said to Vaughn, I wanted to do this season, and it got to a point where I was only doing it because I said that I wanted to do it now versus actually wanting to do it. And I think the last 3 years, the 23, 22, 21, and I just felt burnt out. Like, my training wasn't going well, my knees were sore, my headspace was bad, and I was like, this is not the right time to be prepping. And I said to Vaughn, I want to prep. So for me, next year, it's going to be about, right, I came from men's physique to classic, but I overcame all that sort of negativity within my own self and was able to actually do it. So that's the sort of line that I'm going to go with. So something similar.
No, I love that. I think writing your own story, writing your own narrative with it's a big one. You can just be the lead actor in it and play a role rather than flowing along with it, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, I think just like being able to, I think it is like, even though like we get coached by Vaughn, like it still showcases our ability to sort of stay true to the course, that shows like the characteristics that come along with a prep and just your ability to actually do what you're telling other people to do as well. Be like, I've been there, done that. I know how you feel, sort of thing.
For sure, 100%. Yeah,
man. I want to go into coaching a little bit. Obviously, we're both coaches. 11 years of coaching.
11,
yeah. So one thing that I always like to have discussions with other people is like, what? So me in particular, let's say Vaughn retired tomorrow, and I need to find another coach. I think I'd be a little bit fucked because like I'm very picky, and like I have high standards for who I'd want in a coach, and I try and reflect that upon myself as well. So what are your standards that you expect of yourself and others to be called a good coach? What would you expect?
I think like, you know, from what like I value from my coaching is the ability to like connect with an individual on a psychological element, because I think there's a lot of coaches out there know this, like the science, I mean, the science behind it. But I don't think it's the most overcomplicated thing. It's getting somebody to apply it and buy into it for long enough. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like being able to like communicate as a like on a level of the person, wherever that level is, whether it's they're just starting out in their journey or they're quite competitive. Like I've got a few guys this year potentially going for pro cards. Now that's such a different vibe to somebody that's never set foot in the gym, to somebody you're telling to get on a pro stage. So I think that communication aspect as well is like, it works both ways from a client coach. Like they want the goal, or the client wants the goal, I want the goal, but they have to have an ability to be able to communicate that as well to me in some fashion with feedback.
And I think as well, you'll get like these people that like just come and they're ready to be coached in any way, shape, or form, and there's nothing you really need to do. But it's getting success out of the people that need that little bit of tweaking, that little bit of getting inside their head. And that's not anything that the courses or that prepare you for. So how have you developed the skill set and the knowledge to do that, to get inside a client's head?
I think with time, because I wasn't the best at it. There's no doubt. Like
I was the same.
You know, it's been 11 years. So it's like, I think the more I've become very, as I say, I've had my issues in the past, like I'm very open about in terms of like struggling with mental health. So that made me have to sit down and think about my own thought processes, my own introspectiveness as to why am I feeling this way? Why does that trigger me? So when you do that and you understand yourself more, it's a lot easier to notice that sort of thing in other people and be able to like go towards what they need at that time. Like to me, that is like, I wouldn't even say it's 50-50, the psychological side of it, the physiological side of it. I'd say it's like 70-30 in terms of psychology.
I think that's it, because anybody can follow a diet plan when they feel good, and anybody can train and they can show up when they feel good, but it's when there's a voice in their head being like, I don't know, and it's been able to sort of flip that. I really think that is a skill and something that can only be developed with time. And it's something that I'm a lot better at now, but I'm still continuing to get better, and I'm sure you're the same. And it's like in 2 years' time, you'll be better again.
I'd hope so, or I'd be very disappointed in myself. That's the thing too, isn't it? It's like with everything we do, it's like if we're looking back now and going, oh, I was better then.
Yeah.
You've dropped the ball.
Yeah, you're up shit creek in that case. Yeah. And it's like, that's why I want every year to have better results, be able to like have better clients and like channel, like just learn more and be better. And I think that is, again, one of my true values as well, is making sure, right, look back at the year past, how have I improved and what have I done? And it would be a very bad day if I couldn't look back and say what's better, sort of thing.
Even like to the point of like, I want to be constantly investing in myself and educating myself, as you say as well. Like that's with like the way we get coached. Like I think that's very, very valuable. I know the last. Yeah, go ahead, mate.
No, I think being coached has been my biggest asset to my own improvement as a coach. Like nothing comes close. Like, yeah, being there and doing it yourself, but having someone that's more skilled, that's more knowledgeable than you, and being able to bounce off them back and forth has been a massive thing in my progress as a coach.
It's only, as you said even earlier, about your environment, like that, like, you know, we live in a world where maybe we're not surrounded by loads of people because of the way we live. Yes. So that is our environment. Like I've met you maybe twice, but I feel like I know you because of social media and the ability to interact. Yeah. So it's like picking the right environment, that sort of thing as well. And as a coach, if you're not interacting, if you're living within your own little bubble, thinking you know it all, like you're so far off the mark.
Yeah. And it's like, you never want to be the big fish in the little pond sort of thing. And if you think you're the best in the room, why are you still in that room sort of thing? Go and find a new environment to allow you to grow.
And that's even like, I went to that Two Bros show. I was like, I could be out of my depth here big time. And when I'd seen like, you know, some of the top coaches that I would call enemy, like Callum, Tom Haynes, and then Samson was sitting front. Samson Devara, the third of the world, was sitting front row as I came out. I was about to pose posing routine song that he'd just done at the Arnold's.
Oh, really?
Like, oh, this is now putting yourself in the deep end. But like, that's why we want that. It's that challenge, isn't it? And the want to grow and the want to test yourself.
Yes. I've had that conversation with Vaughn many a times, and and from a competitive standpoint, I'd rather put myself out of my depth a little bit and see where I land versus staying in my comfort level. That's a quiet show. I'll do well there. Like I want to go up against in a big environment, see how I get on, and if I'm not there, then that's
you've done that so many times. Because there are plenty of people out there will cherry pick a show because they think it's, you know, I'm going to get a win. It looks great, but like, you know yourself, if you put yourself in at the deep end there, and that is a much more hollow victory. Like even with clients now of my own, I'm trying not to cherry pick shows. I want to go, right, we're doing like, you know, okay, I would say there's like Two Bros, PCA, and then there's other federations, and then it gets much smaller. So depending where they're at, like maybe we're meeting here, or maybe we're going straight in PCA, because the goal is to be challenged, you know.
That's it. And I think I would rather lose in a good lineup than win and nobody or very little. Like I came first in Two Bros by default, and I don't count that in the slightest. There was nobody else there. And it's like, it just sets unrealistic expectations. And to me, it shows, right, this is where I can go. There's levels to this. And I think coaching athletes, like placing yourself in an environment where you're seeing someone be more and do more is a way to growth as well. 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, man. So obviously you sort of spoke about coaching different kind of people there. You've got your beginners in the gym and you've got your people that are potentially going for pro cards. How does your coaching processes differ from like your Gen Pop client to your advanced competitor?
A lot of it, again, not to go back to psychology, but is how we talk, how we communicate. You know, I think like we set different standards. You know, if you're coming to me and we want to lose a stone and feel and look a little bit better, that's a very different standard than somebody saying, I want to win a pro card. Because to me, that is then with that person that wants to lose a stone, okay, how can we make training fit around your life? How can we make it fit in? With that person, myself, how do I make my life fit around my training? Very, very different standards you've got to set there. You know, you've got to say no to a lot more. I think you can be much more flexible, and it's more like, and they're easy wins at the start as well, aren't they? But you know yourself how you climbed up that ladder. Like those little wins become very, very difficult to grab.
Yes.
So we expect more. I need you to communicate on a more effective level. We need to be looking into things much deeper than when we're at this end of the sliding spectrum.
Yeah. And is that, again, something that you've just been able to develop with time, obviously, because you don't get these competitors at the start of your coaching journey. You just sort of climb the ladder, so to speak.
Again, I think it's like I've grown through it because, again, I went on that journey to like that 40 pound of tissue that was at it. Like, again, that was over a 3-4 year span, but I've learned about myself, what I needed to do to expect to get there. So again, if somebody's telling me they want to be a pro and I'm a mid-tier average amateur bodybuilder, then I'd expect them to at least meet where I was at. Because they got more than that, you know.
And
but then imagine, when it's been overweight, how do you start? How do you feel in that environment? How do you feel yourself so you can relate to that?
And that's the same. Like, so straight away, like, first of all, the clients that you get now will be different to the ones that you were in a 160-pound men's physique athlete, for example.
Yes.
But then, like, I've been there as well. Like, I've fucking dirty bulked and been far too heavy and not good. I've been too thin, been shredded, been really heavy. And I think the relatability and being able to walk with people step by step and be like, right, I know how you feel right now, and this is how I was able to overcome it. And it's like just staying true to the course, being able to pick up things by being in that environment that a client that you're potentially working with is a massive thing as well.
Who do you find, like, who sort of is your client base in terms of at the minute for you? Would you say it is more competitive, or are you getting a good mix of both?
I get probably more gen pop than anything. Like, I try and target my people as like, my role as a coach is to come in and take you past the level that you thought was possible or that you've never been able to do. I've got a few competitors and I've got some photo shoot people, and I would like to transition over a little bit more, but I do like the best of both worlds. So guys want to go on holiday, have a six pack. Girls want to go on holiday and just feeling like their best. So I don't like beginners per se. I have like a certain expectation of my clients. Like, I don't want to hold your hand through the process sort of thing. I want to take you to new levels, but I need you to work with me sort of thing. So I could prep just about anybody within reason as to where I've been at. But we do get the sort of best of both worlds.
Yeah. And that's nice as well. It's nice to have that because it gives you a little bit of variety and keeps you practicing as well, keeps you on your toes. I think that a lot of new coaches coming through, if there are other coaches sort of listen to this as well, there's a lot of them just want to jump straight into the online game, want to prep people. Yeah. They never had any time in the gym floor, never any experience.
And that's that's a good question. How did you manage? Was it COVID that got you into online? Was that how you were able to make the sort of jump from PT to online? Were you just sort of forced environment?
Force your hand again. It's like, well, yeah, there's sink or swim. And like, I struggled to open that saying.
Yeah.
I didn't really open this link when you sent me it. So I'm still not like, I know how to use my program that I use. So I'm still learning in that front. Invested as well in a little bit of mentorship, but wasn't really sure about that, to be honest. But yeah, so from COVID time, it forced your hand. So I set up this like Facebook group called the Pandemic PT. So easy. And so got a few on board, but it was so basic at the time. Where over the last 3 years, it's grown to be this thing that I really do enjoy the most, to the point where I don't really do much personal training in person. I keep a few that I enjoy taking, but really it's because I enjoy taking it, and I think it's good to keep your foot in the gym floor as well, so you're not losing that ability.
Yeah, well, I spent 3 years in the gym floor before. Like, COVID was the same for me. Like, it got to a point where like I had like a Nissan Juke and I was taking 200 kilograms of plates to a park down the road, and I was like, my car's gonna be fucked. So we went into a shipping container where there's two of us, and we just rented that out, and then it just grew arms and legs to the point where we've got our own gym now. And that was never the plan. COVID literally backed us into a corner, and again, sink or swim. And I'll keep some PT because I think it is good to refine your skills and be in there, but it also helps the fact that I can rent free in my own place. And then like just being in, like, I don't know about you, if you get a chance to do this very much, but even my online guys and girls, like, I like to get in and train with them every now and again, just being there and having that face-to-face interaction, seeing how they move, tweaking the small positions and whatnot.
That's the one bit that I would love to be able to do more of. Yeah. But obviously, like, I would say I'm now in Northern Ireland, and I would say my client base is 90% English, but there's maybe a few in Dubai and that side of things. So it's just not doable. But that's the one thing I'd like to do more of, because you always yourself when they're in with you, you can just change their training like that just by putting a hand on them sometimes.
What do you think? So straight away then, like, you've got all these clients that are elsewhere that you don't have the ability to have face-to-face access with. Like, how do you manage? Is it just like getting inside someone's head? Like, how do you find that you make up for lack of face-to-face contact through online?
We have a lot of contact time. We have a lot of contact time. Like, it is a full time. People think this is easy, right? It's a full-time job all day, every day. In terms of being on top of people, I think like how you do your check-ins is important too. Like your Loom videos, actually having calls with people. I do travel back toward England, obviously, with shows as well. So we do maybe team ups as well when they have the opportunity. Okay. But it has to be a lot more. You have to be a lot more hands-on in terms of messaging people. You can't expect them to be on you. Otherwise, there's a quick turnaround and there's no relationship built, which is ultimately like why have we been with on for so long? Relationship, it's
and that's the thing as well. It's like it's like everybody wants things here and now, and like I put something on my story the other day. If you're not there with them, there's someone else that's doing it. So I think being there and accessible all the time is definitely something that's important as well. So what I want to know then is, obviously, are you mainly in the competitive environment now from a coaching standpoint, or do you still coach some gym pop?
I would say it's still maybe 50-50. Well, aside Jen Pot, everybody, like the majority of people are working towards like photo shoots, or we have a very much a time scale on a certain goal point. Like last year, it's 14 competing. This year, there'll be 15 competing. So, there's probably a little bit more in terms of the competitive realm coming anyways.
Okay, cool. So what do you deem as, I'm sensing there's going to be a theme here, but what do you link as one of the most successful, the most important factors for a successful transformation or a result? Like, what do you deem as being the most important thing for A, yourself, and B, the client?
Just ruthless consistency.
Yeah.
And I think doing, it's not just being consistent with it as well. To me, it's like, there's got to be a load of intent behind it, because people say, tick the box. Like I said, I fucking hate ticking. We said, I tick the box when it comes to training. Like, you don't just tick the box. You can't just tick the box. Maybe with your steps or eating your meals, you don't need to fucking smash it in you. But with training, there's got to be intent behind it. So it's those. That's the big thing, is that consistency of quality effort.
Yeah, and there's a difference between showing up and showing up. And I think that is a massive thing. Like people, like it might not be the same with your clients anymore, but you'll have online people who, like, they're just sort of going along and doing the motions sometimes. And I was like, if you want to create a physical change, that is not enough.
Yeah. But like, if my biggest red flag is if I look on, they haven't filled their check-in sheet out, or they haven't sent me the check-in in on time. It's like, I want this more than you. If I'm looking at your check-in sheet and you ain't sent it in, like, where's the investment level there?
Yeah. And you can sort of tell quite early on, like, when someone's like that as well. So that's actually a fair point. How do you turn that around? Like, I'm assuming that, like, you won't have there'll be people who you just sometimes can't turn around, but what would be a success story and how you're able to do that?
Again, I think as I've went through and I've grew, like, my tolerance for that has went a little bit more. And that's just being totally honest with it. It's like, I need you to be invested in it. And that's not to say we can't have slip-ups, but if we have slip-ups, we need to communicate it. Like, a lot of the time, we have the conversation and, talk about what their expectations were initially and how we're not meeting them. And if we can't meet them, then why are you paying me whatever X amount per month? Like, it's wasting both our times. At a point now where my business is going well, and I want them to be as invested as I am, because it's a project. Everyone's a project.
Yes. That's the thing. If there's someone that's not willing to do that, then I'm sure you've got someone that's ready to go that can. And it's like,
I don't have the interest in it then. I don't have the interest in it. So it's like, we're not doing anybody any good here.
I'm the same. And it's like, if I have to chase someone up for a check-in more than twice, it's like, you kind of know it's a done deal. And it's like, I'm not here to hold your hand and walk you along. I want you to walk beside me, and I want us to be in it together. So I can totally appreciate that. And again, I can imagine that as you get deeper into it, those clients do become less and far between as your results go up. And like, I think, like, I'll have it, you'll definitely have it. Like, as I get better results, people come in that there's a certain expectation of them to get to a certain level.
Yeah. And the stuff you put out there as well, like, your vibe attracts your tribe. So it's like, if maybe when I was a little bit younger and was trying to be a little bit softer, like, you're probably not seeing that as much on my Instagram. You're seeing a lot of me in the green thong at the minute, to be fair, but in terms of what I'm putting out, it's a little bit different now. So that person wouldn't necessarily be thinking, that's the guy I want to work with there. That's
yeah, man. So that definitely makes sense as well. So I actually want to dive into your mindset a little bit. Like, you're a very passionate guy on mindset. Like, you put up a lot of stories about you're driven and you've got your whys. Talk to me more about your mindset. I know it's a very general question, but if you just want to lay into me the principles, and we can expand from there.
I just massively value, like, growth. The times I've been at my worst in terms of how I felt mentally and emotionally is when I didn't have something I was working towards, like, that I didn't want to get out of bed for. And that's what I recognized a lot. Like, sometimes I went out, like, try and chill out. And, there's probably a balance there of, like, trying to chill out. I just haven't found that yet. Because honestly, having something that is big, that inspires me to work towards, like, both now, to be honest, in terms of my bodybuilding, like, every day I like jumping out of bed. I can barely sleep at like 2:30 at the minute in the morning, and there's something to work towards. Like, the coaching, like, I want to build that business. It's not from a financial standpoint as much, of course there's an element, but it's because I want to be recognized and feel like I am one of the better coaches in the country. And that's the truth. And it's them sort of things that, like, that's what drives me to do the work. And I also enjoy the work, which makes it a hell of a lot easier too.
When your work doesn't feel like a job.
You want to, exactly. And, like, especially as a coach, when I stand there and somebody's doing a photo shoot, or somebody sends me a check-in picture where they've lost a load of weight, or you're standing seeing them on stage, like, that is like a proud dad movement, because that motivates the shit out of me, because that's what I want more of.
Out of interest, so I've only put 2 or 3 people on stage, but every time they come out, my heart is pounding. I don't know if you get that. I'm so much nerves.
Way worse than I stepped on stage the other day.
Yes.
Like, I was like,
Yes.
yeah, right, it's kind of done now. But
Yeah.
when you like one of the somebody you work with and you took them through that whole journey, you're so invested.
Yeah.
At the start, I was a wreck, to be honest. And some of them did say that to me. I used to be like, "How are you feeling? You nervous?" They're like, "You're making me nervous."
Yeah.
We're now like trying to like calm down. Like,
Yeah.
a bit of nicotine all the time we vape. That kind of
Yeah,
helps.
I remember. So it was last year. I had my first ever female on, and I'd never even got a girl proper lean before that. And I remember she was just getting ready to go on stage, and I was like, "Please don't fuck this up." And you're obviously not going to, because you've got them right up the whole way. Like, they're fine that you've left them, but there's just something about when you get on, man. I think that's how you know you're truly invested, when you're getting like that.
Yeah. Like, I find it more challenging, but like I get more like that with girls, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because my brother, like, with sometimes with the guys, I'm like, "Go on, boys, get her done." You know, it's it should be, maybe it shouldn't be, but that's when I'm like, "Oh Jesus, I hope this goes good." You know.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I'm hoping it's going to come easier with time, but I've got clients ready to go in a couple of weeks.
You're passionate about it, probably not.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you said there, like, you get excited to get out of bed and stuff, and like you've got that. So is it fair to sort of say that if you've not had that previously, and you've got someone being like, right, well, I don't have that, would you argue that maybe they just not got a strong enough why? Like, what would you say to someone that's like, I don't have what you have, how could I get that?
Someone needs to recognize that in themselves, though. Like, you can certainly put them in the direction of it. Like, ask them, they need to explore it. You can point them in that self-exploration. Like, you can go, yeah, let's get a vision plan. Let's think about what you want in the future. What do you want now? How do you picture where you want to be? But ultimately, they still need to go and do that work for themselves to find their why. You can't plant a why in somebody's head. They've got to find and direct them, but like, you can't make them have one.
I think sometimes, like, there's like the principle of like just asking yourself why and why again. It's like, why do you want to do this, and why is that why, and then diving deeper into that sort of thing.
I write mine in the fridge. So every start of the year, I have like my 5. What is my vision? What is my plan for the year? How can I go back and do that? And being honest with you as well, because it's like, if it doesn't inspire you, like, so this sounds terrible, but when I wrote that down, it was like, bodybuilding this year was number 1. Business was number 2.
Yeah.
My marriage was number 4. And I put it in the fridge.
Just for the plain sight.
If I'm not doing that stuff that makes me happy, then we are not happy as a couple.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the truth of it. So sometimes you need to be honest with yourself, because it's easy to say, this is what I want, but it's not always the truth.
Well, I always say, in order to serve everyone else, you need to serve number 1. And if you're not happy, then that's going to fall on everything and everyone around you. I definitely get that. Neil, can I just get... Sorry, guys. Zoom needed updated. We were running out of minutes, so I had to just pause it there.
Get the credit card out.
So we'll pick up exactly where we left off. Neil, you were talking about your vision and everything. If you want to...
So it's about the relationship, I think, being like number 4. But like, that's what I found, because when I first done it, I sat down. I was actually used a tool that was John DeMartini, he was called.
Yeah. Okay.
Guy, it was this kind of psychological analysis, and I thought, this is a lot of shit, because I wasn't really into all that, right? And I'd done it, and I thought, you know what, there is value in this. I was putting stuff that I thought I needed, I wanted to hear as number 1 and 2 and 3 when you explored things. But then I thought, no, that's when I actually thought about it, that is not the truth. So where do you get value in that? Because you're not honest with yourself. Well, what do you get from it? You know?
Because you'll see that, and you'll see other people be like, right, this is what I have, and this is, and you almost answer it in a way that is like, quote unquote, what other people would expect. Whereas, like, I think that's a massive thing. And like, I know for me, if I didn't get into the gym and I didn't do my bodybuilding, I would not be very fun to be around. And in that case, like, it just makes sense that comes first, because serve yourself, everything else sort of falls into place from there.
You know, people see selfish as a bad thing. Now, it depends how you do it. You know, if it's at the expense of other people, then it absolutely is a bad thing. But if it's at the expense of yourself, that's worse, because you're not going to function as a good person. And I know this is deeper than training, but training to me is absolutely that. Like, it is part of us, it is part of me. So if I'm not doing that, if I'm not eating the way I want, if I'm not feeling the way I want to feel, I don't function well as a person. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good son. I'm not a good friend. I'm certainly not a good coach. You know, so, and you find that with people in relationships, even in some relationships, you see, you go, they shouldn't be together, but they're in it as a matter of convenience. We do things as a matter of convenience because it's easier on us. But again, we talk about challenge. That isn't it. We're only here once, not to get too deep. Like, you know,
Like, again, it's like, right, how many people stay together because it's more convenient than going through the hardship of a breakup and being better at the other side of it, sort of thing. You don't hear people speak about that, what you've just said, very often. It's so fucking true. Like, if you're not happy, everything else will fall.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, that's what I do with my clients. Is like that's the protocol. It's not to direct them. It's go. I think you need to do this because you know it's like we all go through phases. As much as we like, maybe I have my shit together now. Maybe in 6 months something will happen and it'll trigger something. Yeah. Because even with this prep, I found that, and I'd said to Vaughn, it was like I think I got this. It's fucking, you're laughing and all. It's easy. It's hard. It's easy. It's brilliant. All this shit, right? But when it went to Saturday, there, so stressed got because things weren't in my control. So I'm a control freak, obviously, right? So I need to get better dealing with that. And stomach went, my legs went flat. I was blaming Abby for not getting the car sorted. When ultimately, that's on me. Yeah. I can book that car. I didn't need her to book it. So then I took out her. And I found that in myself is that actually there's still things that need working on there. And we don't know sometimes until we're triggered with it. So with clients, you know, that'll happen. It won't be a smooth process. If they're with me 3 years, there'll be something happens. And then it's like, okay, now how do you deal with it? Okay, go and work on that. Not for me to tell you. It's how do you work on that then you can come back on track and find yourself again with it.
And I actually say if a client goes off plan and something's come up that they've not had to deal with, I always just be like, you've not had this situation before. You didn't know how you're going to react. But now that you've got more of an awareness, you can reflect upon why you've behaved the way you have. And when it comes up again, you're going to be better prepared for it, sort of thing.
There's as much value in that and feeling, if you look at it that way from a mindset point of view, as there is in actually, like if I'd have stepped on stage there and won first place, or like what would that have meant? You know, but now I've learned lessons and I was over the moon with third. It was my standard. But what I'm saying is like, if it came easy, it wouldn't be worth it. And that's the same with bodybuilding as well. I'm sorry I'm vaping, but this is meal 2 in prep, unfortunately.
Right there, and I'm like just
trying so hard.
Yeah.
But if you know, with people that you see ones with good genetics, I've got guys there that, you know, I'm looking at them going, you could be a pro. Like genuinely you could be a pro, but you haven't had to work at it. Yeah. I'm glad that it took a lot of time and a lot of effort because it's made me, and I value me as a person more than I value the physique on a stage.
Yeah.
Because I can offer more that way than I can offer from standing on a stage and hit the front lat spread.
Totally fair. Yeah, I think that's definitely a better way of looking at it. Like if you look at like your accolades in a sort of plastic shiny object syndrome sort of way, like placings and that, it can really take away from the mental progression as well and how you grow as a person, not just physically but mental.
To me, it's empty without it. It's just empty. It's like, right, I was a dickhead through the whole prep. I got a plastic trophy. Brilliant me. Now back to nobody cares and I've added no value to the world. Whereas like with the Instagram stuff, with Instagram and stuff, I thought I'm going to vlog this year. I'm going to put myself out there. It's opened up to negativity at points. It's opened up to positivity, and that can affect you too. But at least there is something of value added to somebody else. To me, that's the purpose. Without it, it isn't anything.
So I want to ask you that there then. So obviously you said that opens you up to some form of negativity, and we can point that back to environment. And you've got clients and they'll have people around them. They might not understand why they're going to lift weights all the time. They might not understand why they're eating in the way they are. How do you deal with negativity in that context? And how do you not allow it to bring yourself down?
Something I struggle with again, and like, I'm always very open with it. Something I've struggled with in the past and still at times do. You know, like it depends, you know, especially like say like you haven't slept in prep, you're hungry as somebody says something. That's when you need to then be able to stand back and go through all those measures like we talked about, all that self-work. You know, like somebody said today, when will you ever shut up about your prep? Now they're on my Instagram story, right? So I'm like, why are you on my Instagram story? Yeah, you don't have to be. Like that's the thing with social media. We can choose our environment. We can choose it. It's like what FC looking at the fried chicken, going, "Well, you ever fuck up about fried chicken? You don't need to. You don't need to go in and entertain it." You know. Exactly. So I think like learning that is like it's a reflection on somebody else rather than a reflection on you. Because if you're living true to what your values and your vision, you can touch you on that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes negativity from other people can come from either a lack of understanding or perhaps a sense of they're doing something that I don't think I could, and I don't like that.
There is a lot of that. There's a lot of jealousy, and I'm sure you have it with clients. It's like sometimes partners, sometimes parents, sometimes friends, and it's like that's when you need to know thyself. Yes. That little to be able to stand on your rock and go, no, I'm doing this because I believe in it, because it's for me, because it's going to make me a better person. I'm going to be happier at the back end of it.
Yeah, I think you're a man. It's very obvious to people listening that you're a man of values. And I think just being able to stay true to those in times of hardship will be what sort of stands the test of time, so to speak. I
think that's what judged on, Liam, isn't it? Really, is our values and our virtues when it comes down to it. You know, like amount of bodybuilders I maybe ran into over the time, like that you see in social and you meet them in person, you're like, you're not the person I'd hoped you'd be. You're not the person.
Yes.
And it's a letdown. See my coaches, and it's like, if like I don't want that to be the case. I want to be standing and go, right, I'm a man of my values here. This is what you see is absolutely all you get. And if you know it, then it's like, how can anybody touch you? How can anybody touch you? You're bulletproof.
My biggest thing is like, I'm not the best at putting myself out there on social media sometimes. I'll talk to the camera and all that. But my biggest thing is you meet me in person, you're like, you're exactly what you like on social media. Not that you've got some form of arrogance or dickheadness about you like other people do. Like just being able to stay true to yourself. I think that's something that's so important because it's disappointing if you're like, you're nothing like I thought you'd be, or you're nothing like you portray yourself.
And that's what I gathered from you as well, because I said I've only met you a handful of times, but you're seeming very honest, very real. Like we're different in terms of characters, I'm quite out there now, and I wasn't always like that, but I knew that's like how I wanted to be. Yeah. So why was I letting other people's like judgment and fear like stop me being that? Because it's not out of an arrogance or anything. It's just I wanted to be confident. I wanted to be out, like to the point where I would talk about challenge, and then we'll get on, right? But talking about challenge, little things like the way I talked about the laughing side of things when we were doing the prep, like I was like, I'm going to wear that headband.
Yeah, I love the headband, to be fair. I love the headband.
I knew, right, people would say to me, the fuck are you wearing a headband for? You look like a knob. But I wanted to like gather that, see that, hear that, deal with that. And then I feel like that's my bulletproof now. I'll stick that on and go at me. Sure. What?
I fucking love that. Yeah, no, I like that headband. And I think that's it's very fair points and stuff that you're making is just being able to stay true to you. And it's something like you said there that you weren't always putting yourself out like that. And I can actually say like I'm the same as you in the sense that I'm not so good at that sort of just putting yourself out there. There's always that voice in the back of your head being like, what are other people going to say? And like, I don't want to look like a prick or anything like that. How do you get around that mindset, or how did you come away from it?
Like literally practice again. Everything's experience.
Just doing it, just throwing yourself out.
When it's something even I said, yeah, like even booking things or like going to a restaurant. People are so like, well, we do this, or I don't know, we do that, and then they wait so long that they never do it. Like you put this podcast out there. I've talked about doing a podcast. I've never done one. Right. Yeah. So that there's like something you could stand on and go, well, I've done that. And then it's gathering that momentum with it. Right. What's next? So like when I started doing the social media and Instagram stories and all that side of things, I was like, oh, no, delete. Now I just put up. I'm like, no, that's me. That's what I am. Yeah. Walking down the street, doing it. Like, it's building that. And it's like when you're training, you don't just go in and lift a 200 kilo deadlift. You lift 40, 60.
Build up to it,
doing it and you get better at it. And then eventually it's the 60 kilos is nothing to you. And then there's the next barrier because there's 250 to it.
That's such a good analogy. I think that's something that you can say to me, but you can apply that to anybody's sort of goals or actions towards anything. Like just treating it like that, rather than you're being here and building up to there. Just take it a step and a level at a time.
Like even imagine that if someone had said to me when I was on stage at 160, completely broken man out of COVID, going right, you're going to be on a 2-bro stage there in front of Samson and be a 200-pound bodybuilder, you'd have went, but it's those little things every day that add up. Like every day, write down, like this is my task for the day. This is what I'm going to achieve out of the day. I know it's deep, but for me anyways, and my clients, it works because there is a goal for that day. I'm very goal driven. There's a goal for that day. This is what I need to achieve. If I achieve this will lead to this outcome, and you just compound it.
Yeah. So obviously we spoke a lot about mindset here and we spoke about coaching a little bit. I actually want to talk a little bit more about bodybuilding here. So there'll be plenty of people who are going to be able to feel what we felt and what we're going to talk about, but there'll be people that maybe haven't been quite where the depths of like an off season that we have. And I think you've had it a lot worse than I am, but I want to talk about it. How do you manage at such heavier body weights? Talk about the hardships and how you're able to overcome that. Because I don't know about you, but I really struggle.
The first off season was different because we didn't push up quite as heavy. I think went 160 to about probably hit 200, I think, at the top end. So it was still a 40-pound off season.
What's crazy is that you were 200 on stage, like when you put it like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And it obviously felt easier at that than it did the first time round. And it always feels easier once you've got that weight. But this year was like, it was a big step up, and I was so driven that I wanted to go like, right, I want to be actually like, want to look at myself, go, I'm a bodybuilder now. Just like, not have any narcissistic, it's just a goal. But in that, in the off season itself, it's brutal. It really is. And you talk about everyone's, I wish I could eat that amount of calories. You don't. Don't. Every single
for a day, but not for fucking 6 months on end. Yeah.
Refeed. Here's a refeed. easy, right? Now do that for 6 months and feel. I think for me it was like the back pumps, being so out of breath, like, you know, the sense of like losing motivation, but still have to continue it because you have to trust. You can't see shit. Like I looked like not the Michelin Man, but I felt like I felt just completely like a big swollen monkey. And it was getting stronger. So I was like, this has to be working. You just got to trust in the process with it. But like, I remember when I got to like 230, like I used to start wearing flip-flops because it could not be ours. Like, and that's not huge because there's way bigger guys than that. But for me, that was huge because it couldn't be ours getting down to tie my shoes. I was down to tie the shoes. Or with me and Abby, maybe my wife, sorry, Abby, I were going for a walk, and you were walking and going, I'm so fucked. I cannot move. There was lethargy. There was constantly, I need to eat the next meal. I need to eat my next meal. And then like we got to the point where the food quality probably dropped a little bit, which I would do differently now. I don't think I would go to that point.
Yeah.
Like going to McDonald's twice a week, I was like, what am I doing here to get food in? You don't even enjoy food. And that's when I wanted to diet there at Christmas time, because I was like, I owe my family, after being back for a year, a good Christmas. And at the minute, my Christmas day would be better if I wasn't allowed to eat anything than it would be if I was to have a Christmas dinner right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I remember gagging as well, like just constantly before we went into train, maybe it was something like, oh, hard session. I was like, haven't even started yet. Just like wanting to be sick all the time. You know, it did pay off, but it was very extreme, very extreme.
And a lot of people don't talk about these side of things either. Like you see people talk about the hardship of prep, but not the opposite side. And like I'm the same, like, so I just want to put something out there. Like you said about how you felt like the Michelin Man, even though you wasn't. And I think something that people need to remember, especially like people that are listening to this, maybe a little bit less experienced, someone might have looked at you and like, oh wow, you're in great shape. But how you feel is more important than anything. And it's like if you feel fat, then that's your feelings must come first and foremost. And like that always has to be taken into consideration. So I just want to touch on that, but I'm the same, and I'm not the biggest person in the world, but I'm already getting, I think I'm 213 or 14 pounds if you convert it. So 20 pounds lighter than you. But
you're nearly 100 kilos, aren't you?
Yeah. So I might
220.
Yeah. My girlfriend, I ate breakfast yesterday and I went to put my sock on. I was like, I can't fucking reach. She had to put my sock on for me.
We had a thing. After I hit 220, she took my socks off for bed. So now she's like, all right, until you get the 240 this time.
Yeah.
You get your own socks off.
And like my lower back pumps, like I can't do any form of hip hinging right now. My knee goes, I can't do squat patterns. My appetite is really shit as well. Like I really struggle with hot food. Like it needs to be cold food. Like toasted bagels are not a thing anymore. Yeah, hot cross buns, that sort of thing. Just anything cold, mate. Sandwiches. And I've also found, I don't know, Tesco's do these like Tesco's finest cookies. It's like white chocolate honeycomb, man. I'm having them more times a week than I should be right now just to get the food in. And
that's where I struggled. Was the food quality bit. Because it's like this no longer feels healthy, but at some point in bodybuilding, unfortunately, the health is probably not that's the trade-off where most people don't get big.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's forcing through that and understanding that there, like with anything in life, there is absolutely a trade-off, but that trade-off better be fucking worth it to you. And that's what this prep was as well. Is like, you better make all that shit worth it.
Yes, yes, as well. Like you can't feel through all that hardship. And like for example, as well, we went to walk the other day, and she was complaining at me because I was complaining I wanted to go back because I was feeling fucked. And it was like, you can't put everyone through the hardships of that and not deliver at the other side of it. Yeah,
that's where the pressure comes with it. And then, like, if you want to, like, I suppose we can try. I'm happy enough to just touch on the drug element of it a little bit. And you know, for not everybody, of course, not everybody does it. But if you're in a bodybuilding or you're into like untested federations, even as men's physique, you're probably going to be using anabolic steroids to some degree. A lot of the time, the danger's in the dose. It's like having a bottle of beer or having a bottle of vodka. Two different things, both lead to a different outcome. But you need to be very sensible with it. But I would say, like, the drug use and how you do it, you got to be smart with. And it was a part of my off season, no doubt. And I would say, in order to put that 40 pound on, it was definitely a lot more part of it than I'd maybe have liked it to have been. And that's where that project, in terms of a 5-year project, comes into it. Because the next level, well, what does the next level require? It requires a level up of everything you've just done. So that means potentially more drug use. Is that worth the trade-off to you?
Yeah.
And that's what I've got to come to the decision on. Or the food, or doing all that again, putting everybody else through it, going on holidays, sitting in the plane going, oh, my back, need to stand up, can't sit down in the cubicle toilet because they're like this size, you know. So it's like, it's all these little things. That's when you got to decide, is the juice worth the squeeze?
And that limitations that you just mentioned is why I know that I'm not a big boy by any means compared to, but I already am at the point where I feel uncomfortably big. And like I like wearing nice clothes, I can't do it. And those limitations that you've just mentioned there regarding all those factors, like I can't go above that. And it's like I know that I've got a glass ceiling. I'm sure I could, but I have self-imposed limitations on where I want to go because of that.
And that's the important thing, is be able to recognize that in yourself as a client, as a coach, looking at a client and getting some of that feedback too. But like, and that's where I was coming to the decision of, is like, it was only my partner there. We talked and she was like, I think you want to, and I think I'd like you to do this for another couple of years, considering how far you came on with and how much enjoyment you've got from aspects of it. And you enjoy the challenge of it. It's like, I think I got an open season in you. And that to me was like, green light.
Yeah, good to go.
You know?
And that support network, and just having that as well, because like you hear people all the time, like relationships get strained with that, and it's like you've got friends who don't understand that you can alienate people. So when you've got environment around you and you've got the green light and you want to, like, why wouldn't you in principle?
No, exactly that. Yeah, it's been understanding the health side of things, looking into that a little bit deeper, having someone in your corner that's also aware of where you're willing to take it and wanting to take it, and not being not man enough. I don't mean to be PC, but man enough to know where your cutoff point is for it too.
And it's like, just knowing that, like, I think sometimes people have unrealistic expectations as to how much food it'll take, how much drugs it'll take, how much work it'll take to get to where they want to be. And it's knowing that and accepting it, embracing it. Then
the thing for me as well is, maybe I get a client and they say they've only started and they go, want to be a pro. Right, hold on a minute here. Like, you haven't even entered your first show. You have no idea what any of that process involves. And everybody's, before you start a prep, they're always willing to do whatever it takes. That's the saying, isn't it? They're always willing to do whatever it takes until they find out, well, what it's going to take, and it can break you. It really, really can, if you're not mentally in a position. Like, you done 100% the right thing there this year. You're not in that position. You weren't in the headspace. That would have broke you. We're now like, I fucking want to compete in September time, so you'll be jumping in the bit come Christmas.
I've taken the time and apply. 100%. And it's like just recognizing that there's a right time to do it, there's a right way to do it. And it's funny, like, I don't know if you had this, but when I was back in my first season 2019, and even probably up to 2 bowls in 2021, I was like, I want to be a pro. I've got what it takes to be a pro. And I was like, I can't even win a regional. Like, if I was to become a pro, I'm going to get lost in the mix. What is the point? So I very quickly realized I do not want to be a pro. I also don't want to live like that, for months on end, years on end.
That was a question I got when I put this story up for the podcast. Is like, what's your 3, 5, 10-year plan, or whatever, to be? You want to be a professional? Like, don't be wrong. I'm going to work like I'm a professional. I conduct myself as a professional and everything. But you don't. You just do it, and you just see what the outcome is. And I was standing there I was seeing them super heavyweights on stage getting tan. You're like, they're a different fucking breed than me. It's like a lion and a cat. It's like, you got to know where you stand, because if you don't know where you stand, that's when it leads to problems, and you're starting to abuse food, abuse your body, abuse drugs, lose relationships, because you're pushing things to a point that you have no right to do so. Because sometimes these guys, it comes easier. It's just there. So it's like, where do you want to be?
I think, you'll know pretty early on if you've got the genetics to go that way, because you'll look at food and grow, you'll have the easy appetite for it, and it's just knowing that, like, right, maybe this isn't actually for me and I don't have it, but I'm going to work towards it and see how far I get. But my success will not be dictated by a card.
No, I've been around a lot of professionals now. Like, I train one currently, a female. Newcastle was surrounded by quite a few like classic guys, bodybuilding guys, Abu, and then they've got Nikki, to give her a shout out over here. She's competing in her first pro season this year as a women's physique athlete. Nice. Phenomenal physique, and she won't mind me saying this. To get her pro card, I looked at her training when I came home. I looked at her nutrition, and I was like, how have you become a professional doing that? Like, dog shit training, like, no idea really with nutrition. And now she's doing it the right way, and she's just growing like a weed, and you're like, wow.
And I think that honesty is what you need as well. Like, don't have a yes man. Don't be like, you can be a pro. It's like, well, what are you doing? And your actions actually reflect the goal at hand. And having someone there to tell you that. Like, I'd far rather someone just be brutal with me than be like, oh, no, you look great when I don't, sort of thing.
It's a conversation I've had a couple of times this year, and ones, to be honest, at the start I found very awkward, until I started prepping and realized how much it took. And then I find it a lot easier to go, listen, like, you're not at that level. You're not conducting yourself in that way either to even warrant thinking about being at that level. Take from this what we need to take from it, you know, from a mental side of things, and just see how far you can progress, because that's the fun of it. You sometimes you start putting like, I will not be successful at this until I win this show, until I will be unsuccessful if I don't win it. Like there is no pleasure in that, because it's just like you don't know who shows up.
And I actually think taking it a step at a time, like I can go back to the conversation with Vaughn last year. After I finished, I was wanting to win an overall last year, even though I'd never properly won a show. I won an overall. And I said to Vaughn after, I was like, I want to go up to classic, but maybe I could do one more show in men's physique, so maybe have one more stab at an overall. And he's like, no, slow down. You need to win a show first before you even think about an overall. And it's like jumping steps, isn't it? And just taking it a step at a time. And I think that's so important. That can be broken down into anybody's journey, step at a time.
Like this year, when somebody like, you know, Vaughn even was going to me about, you're going to get first place. You know, other clients say with us, it's like, going to get first place. And like, you know, as if it's a loser's mentality not to go in for first place. But I so disagree with that. And it's something I did disagree with him on. It's like, and maybe that's the wrong mindset, but like, well, I'm doing everything I can do. Everything I can do. So who gives a fuck if it's first place? Like I was just happy with that third at the weekend there, like over the moon. That was a real high.
I remember watching your story, like how happy you were.
Like, he's crying and all. And it's like, that's a huge win, because what more could I have given? £40 in 3 years. There's not many professionals, there's not many amateurs doing that, and brought in very good conditions. So like, well, that's what it is then. You know, it's brilliant. It's happy days.
I think that's something that, like, I next time I'm going in with the mentality of I'm putting myself through this because I want to do well and I'd like to win. But I think just having the expectation of I'm going to win is two very different things. And like, do what I can, go in with a winning mentality, and what will be will be.
If you hold yourself to that level, and like that's what I say to every client. I know we're talking here a lot, like probably about emotion, but if you can stand there, right, and stand there and go, I could have given absolutely no more. Yeah. Like, how can you be a loser? Because I stood there, I'll be honest, on stage and looked at the guy that won it, right? And I hope he's Scottish, so he might watch this. And I looked at him and I thought, you didn't give your all to this process. He was meant to be going for classic, right? He missed his weight cap by 6 kilos.
Oh, fuck.
Right, he's going to want his pro card in classic, and he's good enough, but he missed his weight cut by 6 kilos. I looked at him, a little bit softer than me. I'm like, I gave more to this process than you. I won. In my head,
who's a true champion?
You did not apply yourself correctly. If you missed your weight cut by 6 kilos, you fucked it.
Yeah. That's not even like, no words, man. No words.
So that's just my thoughts on every client. It's like, you better stand there and say, I give it my all. Yeah. And if you win, then I'm obviously over the moon. I want to win, but it's not the measure of my success.
Yeah. I think that you can apply that to anything, really. Like, we're speaking about bodybuilding, but that can be any goal. It can be anything out with bodybuilding as well. Like, if you apply yourself and do everything you can, what more can you do? Like,
you're coaching or you're gym. Yeah. Like I'm going to post every single day, going to add value. And I want to be the best coach in the UK, but what even is that? I want to be up there, right? That's a big goal. That's like saying you want to be a pro, probably in that regards. But like, if you give it your all and you give your all to your clients, then you're going to be a success in some fashion. You're going to be a lot higher than if you're just not putting any effort into it. Like, it's going to take you somewhere, you know?
Like, it's inevitable at that point. It's just, again, it's a timeline and it's pace, and it's like, just focus on what you can control, isn't it? And like you say, just showing up every day and giving it your all. I love that. So one thing that you asked me at the start, I do want to ask you this. Obviously, you've had a big journey so far. What has been your biggest mental and physical sort of lesson along the way in this time?
Yeah. From a mental standpoint, because I know I talk a lot about that, but it means something to me. It's something I've done a lot of work in myself. As I say, at many points, like, I have felt very broken, very down. And I feel that like the biggest lesson I take is like ownership, like complete and utter self-ownership of every aspect. If it went wrong, it's my fault. If it went right, it's my victory. Vaughn's helped, people will get in your way too, but it's mine. I own it. Like, I don't believe in
the ship, but you're the engine sort of thing that worked there.
Yeah, it's mine. You know, if I don't want to do it, I'm telling I'm not doing it. You know, it's like this is all mine, and you know, every single person has an aspect of that, and I give them thanks and praise. But it's mine as well as my feelings. If my peak goes wrong, it isn't his fault. It's my fault. You know, or if a client leaves, why did he leave? And then you can look back on that. If you just outsource your blame, then you'll never learn. How can you learn from outsourcing blame onto somebody else? If your partner leaves you, oh, she's a bitch. No, well, how long? What could you have done better? every conversation is something, you know, every single thing you can maybe get better at or don't. You have to learn. Life's a lesson. So you got to play the game.
Reflection of self. Yeah, I could not agree more.
That to me, being introspective, I am not praying to God. I'm not manifesting. I'm not rubbing crystals.
Yeah.
It's me, all on me, right? And that's just my thoughts. In terms of the physical side of it, you can go much deeper than you think you can. Like, you can push your body, and when you really apply yourself to pushing it, you can make some crazy changes. Like you've done there in the last few years, like I've done, you know, with like actually going to the depths to get glutes in, to put 40 pound on. Like, you can take your body to some real hard, nasty places, and you can survive. You can survive, not kill you, you know.
Yeah, there's always work that can be done, and there's always more work that can be done. And if you think you've reached your cap, there's more there for sure. Yeah, totally agree. Was there any questions or stuff that you had on your end that you want to sort of go back and forth on?
Well, I went through a few of them there, like the 3-5 year plan, the prep stuff. But I think that honestly, I hope there's a lot of value in that. I think we've covered a lot, probably from the mental side of things. But it was nice to touch on the bodybuilding, because it's something we probably could talk about all day too. You
100%, man. Yeah, this could turn into a 3-hour podcast if we weren't careful.
And everybody switched off. You've got upgrading again.
The only listeners will be just us two at that point. Yeah, well, we can call it there then, I think, because that was great. I think that was really insightful. I think there's a lot of things that people can pick up on, both on like the mental side of things, and even just like how people conduct themselves as coaches, as athletes, as individuals. I think there's just something to be taken from anything here. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time to come on and do this today, and maybe we'll do another one slightly different in the future as well.
Thank you, mate. I loved it. Really did.
Where can people reach you?
So mostly on Instagram, Neil Rennie Coaching. Have a look at Instagram, but also got YouTube. I think plan is to upload this onto YouTube as well. I'll put it on my YouTube channel and Spotify. But if you're looking at any coaching, but the goal, we want the big changes. So whether it be transformation, photo shoot, or prep, we sort of cover the lot. And you have a look at my results. I think they speak for themselves without being arrogant, just confident.
100%. I think like the standard of results you have is incredible, and being able to share some of that insight is something that I'll take a lot away from, and other listeners as well. So it was a pleasure, man, and we can end it there.
I appreciate it, mate. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you again, bud.